Now, speaking of governments trying to divide us by race, The Voice, the Albanese government's racist plan for a kind of advisory parliament just for Aborigines written into our constitution. Now, this is so fundamentally wrong. I mean, this country isn't supposed to be racist, I would have thought. It is so racist that, to me, it's been amazing that the Liberals still won't say that they're against this. On principle, basic principle. Instead, you get senior Liberals dancing around like frontbencher Michaelia Cash did just today.
What's your personal view of the concept?
Well, it's really interesting because this is Mr Albanese, now Prime Minister of this country, who went to the election saying this government will be one that is transparent. They cannot even answer the most basic of questions.
But as you see just there, the Liberals themselves won't answer the most basic question of all. Aren't you against this racial division of Australia? It's pretty simple. Joining me is one Liberal MP, Garth Hamilton, member for Groom, who told me last night he wanted to come on the show to say something about this. Garth Hamilton, it's a pleasure to see you again and welcome to you. All right, let me ask you the same question that
Thanks for having me.
Was asked of Michaelia Cash with no success. The Voice, what's your personal view of that?
Look, God, it's pretty easy. I'm fundamentally opposed to separating Australians or giving Australians different rights on the basis of race. I don't think that's a controversial position. I grew up not to think it was controversial, and I think it's probably the least newsworthy thing I could probably ever say. I think that wonderful equality that Australia enjoys is one of the most fantastic things. It's what made us such a great country. I don't see how that is of benefit to our nation.
See, I don't get it because, like you know, I when I was much younger, you know, we looked at South Africa with horror, apartheid. Now I know it's, you know, this is sort of well-meaning apartheid, but it's still apartheid, and we thought never, never, and yet here we're getting Labor deliberately trying to introduce elements of that. Now, tell me why more Liberals aren't saying absolutely no.
Well, look, Andrew, I can only ever speak for myself, and I'm quite happy to. I think, like most Australians, I want to see our Aboriginal brothers and sisters enjoy every part of the Australian experience, including access to and the embrace of our wonderful democracy. And I hope that they feel that they can embrace that democracy as strongly as the rest of Australia. I think that's a fantastic thought, and it's something that we should aspire to. Look, I grew up as a kid in Ipswich. I looked up to people like Neville Bonner, who showed that, you know, he broke through a lot of barriers, but he wanted to be part of the Australian Parliament. He didn't want to be in a separate body. He made that very clear, and I think that's a wonderful example that we can look back on and reflect with some pride that we have broken that down, that his legacy lives on. And I have strongly believed throughout this process that the best possible place for an Aboriginal voice to Parliament is one that comes from within that Parliament, sitting side by side, shoulder to shoulder, with everybody else in the room as equals. And I think that's a fundamental part of the Australian experience. I've lived overseas in countries that do not have that belief, and that was quite frankly a terrible experience, seeing different rights being afforded to people within one country. I think it's a fantastic part of the Australian experience. I'm very proud that we are very, very equal in our approach. I think it's important we increase access to democracy, but maintaining that idea that we all stand under the law as equals is very important.
Well, your ideal is being realised in this current Parliament because we now have some 5% of MPs in our federal Parliament identifying as Aboriginal. 5% whereas in the community, fewer than 4% are Aboriginal. So I would have thought, boy, you know, this should be celebrated instead of saying, no, now we need another separate body. Now, I agree with your leader, Peter Dutton, that the Albanese government should give us the details. You know, how many, for instance, how will members of the Voice be chosen? Will they actually be elected? Will the government guarantee that this body doesn't get real power? But what worries me is that if the Liberals are making this an issue about details, they are implying that, well, if those details can be sorted out, it is okay to racially divide us. They are surrendering the principle. Do you think, in the end, the Liberals will come out and say, look, this is just wrong? Forget the details. This is just wrong.
Look, I don't want to proceed what's happening. I'm quite happy to make my voice clear and my views clear. But what I do want to say is I absolutely support Peter Dutton's position here. I think it's crucial that we push the government for these details. As a legislator, I want to take a considered view on everything that comes before me. I think that's my job. That's what I'm expected to do by the people of Groom, to make sure that I take all that information in before I make a decision. And quite frankly, the Prime Minister is denying myself and Australians the opportunity to have a considered view when it comes to this referendum. But Andrew, look, I think the big point here is that why these details are important. The question is, why doesn't the Prime Minister want to reveal these details? And the scary answer is he doesn't want to. Have a look at the form of this government. They went into that election playing very small target. They didn't want to tell us what they were going to do, but after the election, every opportunity they've had to bound to the left, they've taken. All of a sudden, we have price caps, we have pattern bargaining come in, things that we would never have assumed, given the language in the election, would come about. This has been a government that has jumped so far to the left, has been interventionist, has been Whitlam style in everything it's done. That is the form of this government. So when they are hiding the details, when they're refusing to tell you these details and you want to guess what they are, look to what this government has done. This is a government that wants to leap to the far left. And I believe very firmly that's why the Prime Minister will not reveal the details, because he doesn't want us to know them.
I agree, because it turns out, it seems, that they won't even have elected members. They're going to allow certain families within certain tribes an outside say in saying who's going to represent other tribes, including not even their own. It's so fundamentally undemocratic. Look, Garth Hamilton, thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it.